When original developers of games start to publish them out for the world to see and consume, they sure must feel so accomplished for what they've done. But until then, you have these really obscure rip-off games sitting around online, or mainly mobile games, which is part of this matter. They can end up as free games being extreme knockoffs from its originals. There are almost hundreds, maybe thousands of examples for this. So in this video, we're going to go through some of them today, and then make some huge claims for its purposes, and then potentially make a huge rant out of them. Sound good? Good, let's go. I first had a look at my Steam library, and already one came to mind. We have Fall Guys, a famously recent, recognized obstacle course game, along with Stumble Guys, a straight rip-off mobile game, free to play on the App Store, and from the way it looks, it's basically low-budget, mobile-controlled Fall Guys. Although, this isn't seemingly a bad game. I mean, it has an average amount of a 4.2 star rating, there's been a few updates adding new content to the game, and for some reason, it appears at the top of the top free iPad apps list. I did also have a play through it for the first time, and from my experience, not terrible, but at the same time, you cannot ignore the lack of originality for this game. I'm almost sure the idea from the developer of this game was that he rips off Fall Guys, makes it free while making slight design changes and making mobile controls to make it work. And when the Stumble Guys game was released in October last year, this was the time when Fall Guys was behind a paywall. But now that the original game is free now, it just makes the rip-off developer look even more guilty. But either way, originality completely off point, and it's been an ongoing thing for years, especially in the mobile gaming industry, and sometimes it's really hard to ignore. I then thought of trying to find one of the more classic games that does have a recognized history, and stumbled across Geometry Dash, a game that hasn't had a major update in almost 6 years, but whatever. And surprise surprise, there are more rip-offs to be found that act the exact same as the original game. Hey, that rhymes really nicely. A perfect example for this is Geometry Jump. And this doesn't just appear on the App Store, for some reason it also appears on the Microsoft Store. I have no idea why it needs to be in the most dead-ass, weird online store with the strangest customers, but you do you, I guess, Mr. Roger Peng, the developer of a very creative game. Both editions also have very bad ratings, and I'll come off of that with good reasons too. I'll start by saying that this ripoff is completely useless. Not because it's basically the same as the original, but because you can basically make this ripoff with the original game. What do I mean by this? Well, I'll show you. The only things that the ripoff game provides are 4 levels with simple designs, which tells me that I could remake these levels by using the level builder in the original game. So not only it makes this game eternally useless for this reason, the ripoff developer himself could do the exact same thing as I said, instead of just making a whole new ripoff game. And also, there are 3 sounds that are ripped straight from Mario games: the death sound effect, the coin collect, and when you finish the level. I can sort of respect him crediting the original game and even that original game's inspiration, but if you're going to then take other well-known video game sound effects and put that right into its own intended ripoff, then that just makes it even worse. Take a shot every time I say ripoff, but ripoffs like this that just take sound effects from literally anywhere instead of making your own really sets the tone for how uncreative every single one of these ripoff games are, no matter what is included. I can also definitely assure you as well that Geometry Jump is not the only example of these types of ripoffs. There are also insane amounts of GTA or similar Mafia games that are scattered all across a single search of GTA. I would try and see what these ripoffs are like, but considering the fact that I've just gone through a few terrible popular game ripoffs, and there now being almost hundreds of variants for GTA, I think I'd rather go outside and touch grass. It's sort of understood why these developers make these weird ripoff games, and they do it potentially for one reason only: money. When these developers make the uncreative game, I can tell that this mostly comes from ads from these mobile games most of the time, especially those stupid Mafia ones. Because I know the purpose of these ads is to try and attract an audience, and obviously make an attempt to trick them into purchasing their quite original and creative games. I don't fully know the percentage for how many people do this, but I sure hope that I'm one of many who has never fallen for this BS. Or possibly another reason to make these ripoffs is for seemingly poor people, aka unsupervised kids who don't want to buy original games, but instead get the shitty ripoffs for free. And this is where it really gets out of hand, because as I mentioned before, when Fall Guys recently became free, this happens for so many other games. Especially you, Epic Games, I'm getting closer to making a video about you. So many original games over the years that have been made free. Once GTA for a month or so, Rocket League, and even worse, Among Us. Because wow, it looks like we started off good, but we're losing people. Let's make this free on Epic, because hell yeah, people. Although I now realize it's unimportant, so moving on. If this is one of the reasons that these rip-off games exist, then it's another excuse to say that it just makes us all look bad. If we know that some people would rather simply just play the rip-offs instead of actual games. A perfect gaming industry for me that used to be present back in the day would be games lying there with prices for money that the developers deserve for their work and development, and if some games are just standard casual games, which are most of the time on the mobile app stores, it can be fair enough to be free, and most of all, and most importantly, no rip-offs from any developer sitting around that these game stores give access to in game production. It seems like these days we're stuck in a loop of random developers week in week out just spreading the simple game continuum, which are not only just straight rip-offs from almost everything, but also games that are a complete waste of time. An example for this includes something like Count Masters, that standard simple game that probably appears 98% of the time from your mobile ads that you just cannot ignore or avoid in any situation, and where it's a legitimate bot acting like the dumbest player ever. And if it seems like this continuum is going to go on for years, the better chance more people would be attracted to this, which is never a good look for our precious gaming industry. I've had and always will have so much respect for actual good developers over the years, especially since the start of mobile game when you had the classics like Fruit Ninja, Jetpack Joyride, Ski Safari, Angry Birds, all these classic games that were all different and recognized in only good ways. But until now you have the garbage on the other half that just lies around everywhere, and when it's hard to turn around from them. I also don't believe anyone who runs any of these stores have any sort of mind to understand what their users have to face. I can also tell people would be like, oh, this isn't really harming anyone, so it shouldn't matter that much. But at the same time, not only you can't ignore it, it's just there. It lies there and reminds us that this has had so many negative impacts for our gaming industries, and we've now reached the point where you just can't do anything about it. Now, after providing a big voice of reason and evidence for this video, nothing can be changed about it, because it's not up to us. It depends on our continuum, our people, our creativity, our developers, and they all have nothing, because all that happens most of the time is have these random developers with their only good options to them being to just continue making these things go their way, with no option to stop it for everyone's good sake. With all that said, that's pretty much it. I would say most of the negatives have been placed of this video, but from our casual point of view, the negatives is all that can be said from this matter. For all this, I will give one final message to everyone: please be productive during your game time, in the way that we should enjoy everyone's different point of view, creativity and development, all at once. Both developers and players and everyone involved will be all fine with this, but whatever, it's not gonna happen anyway. But you never know. So thanks to everyone for watching this video and for stumbling upon my great return to this platform at last, actually for the first time this year. Goodbye to all and Happy New Year for next year, because as you all know, my video schedule is bad enough that I forget what uploading is. Alright, bye!